Hey Tenno, this is Mako, and we're gonna go over Vauban today, as I finally built my Vauban Prime because that Oxium Nidium grind sucked. Just saying. Really, D? And that's after they supposedly made it easier. 14,000 to 7,000 Oxium, really? Anyway, Vauban Prime and Vauban are the basic, well, trap-themed Warframe. The basics is you got a tripwire, a bounce pad, concuss, and, shred traps, as well as the Tesla coils. Now, the augment for the Tesla coils is actually my favorite to play with because on basic missions I can just leave those all over the place and enemies just kill themselves. Now, once a trap of the second power is placed, it will not go away until it is used up. So you can actually bug a whole room full of bounce pads, just go to town by pushing an enemy via trap in there, via tripwire, and just watch them bounce around. It's rather entertaining. I tend to use a CC based Vauban. I don't do damage, it uses wide range, but I'm more or less going for spammable powers because I enjoy throwing these up and just keeping the enemies under wraps so I don't get hurt, and neither does my squad. Now, this is a trick that was shown by Distant Observer. Basically, you have the vortex up there and you throw some traps in it while the enemies are in there, and the enemies will kind of vaporize. It's a weird glitch, I will admit, but the basis, I think the reason this is because the enemies are so CC'd they can't physically move and it glitches the game, so the game auto removes the enemy because it's a problem unit. At least that's just my theory. They're so CC'd they die, basically. Now, there is a method to do this on the ground. You put a bunch of vortexes on the ground as such, and you still put some traps in it, but it's just quicker to deal with them, honestly, with your melee. Personally, if I'm doing the vortex in the air trap, concept, I'll put a bunch of Tesla coils, as I did find out it works with Tesla, suppress, or concuss, shred, and bounce pads. It doesn't really work with the tripwire, because the way it sets up looks weird and it just bounces enemies out. So just a heads up on that if you're going to try that trick. Now, for Vauban, I mainly use these saws, axes, whatever, and I just find them useful. Ever since their buff and speed, they've been pretty effective now. Especially with the Maiming Strike build to do status and crit. You can also teleport around with the augment with them, but I just rather have Maiming Strike just to deal that nice amount of damage. Berserker, high status, Maiming Strike. What's not to love? Now with the Akka Stiletto Primes, I myself just have them set up to burn away armor, but I have heat in there just to deal a little extra damage against flush-based enemies. I don't focus on them dealing damage, it's more about just tearing apart the armor, as I have weapons specifically set up to target different unit types. That works for me. So, trick is throw a vortex in there, throw a trap in it, or throw a bunch of traps. Whatever's your speed, Tenno. So let's do a little show and tell with the build, shall we? This is an unformed build, as you can clearly see. I don't tend to do formas on most of my builds, as most Warframes really don't need it. Their basic builds are more or less set up to work pretty effectively, at least to a standard thing. I've gone against hundreds to 200s, 300s, and usually don't die rather easily. Anyway, the basics of the augments, I mainly find the Tesla coil more fun. The main thing about Vauban himself is he's just fun to play. You can have more or less a lot of entertaining laughs with your squad mates and such, just watch enemies fly into the air or CC, ragdoll. That's where I find his strengths are more or less suited to be a great CC Warframe. So more or less he is the king of CC, I would say. Now let's just face it, Titania's probably the queen of this now. Now, as you can see, I'm getting quite a bit of damage here, so mainly what I'll do is I'll just throw a vortex down, as I do have a spammable Vauban for a reason, and I do have rage and life strike just so I can get my energy up. Sacrifice a little health, get a lot of energy. Seems to work. Now here's my variation of glitch. You put a lot of vortexes down, you just throw traps like crazy on them. So that's a trick to do it on the ground if you want to try it. So, thanks for watching, Tenno. Hope this helps.